Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me first who you are?
Okay, my name is Diogo de Guzman Sart. I work for the European Commission in Brussels in climate research policy.
Climate research policy?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your daily job?
My daily job is looking into climate science, climate research areas that we haven't looked at before. So, if you like, blind spots in science, in climate science and research, or areas that perhaps need a little bit more attention. So, my responsibility is to propose policy, so future direction where research is going to go in the future. So that's what I do.
And you mean blind spots in teams or blind spots in areas?
Main areas. So, for example, let me give you an example. We don't have a full understanding, for example, of what carbon dioxide in the atmosphere does to human health.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So we don't really fully understand that, or we don't know, for example, what it does to insects or other animals that may have an impact on us. So this is the kind of things I do. So I look at a bit blue sky thinking. So okay, this is what we understand. What is it that we don't understand, and that we need to put more investment and research into understanding. So that's what.
And what kind of research are you doing at this moment? Can you give an example of one of the things which is really interesting, which you just found out?
So one of the things, I mean, I don't do research myself, so because I work for the Commission, so we sort of draw research plans, if you like, okay? So, and then we tell the community of scientists and researchers, we would like you to look into this, okay? And here is X amount of money. These are the topics of research. Are you interested? If so, apply. And then we're going to look at your plans and see if they meet the needs that we have. But one example we have at the moment is, I'm sure you've heard of IPCC.
Yes.
IPCC has produced 5 assessment reports on the state of the climate. And they tend to do that through cycles. And one of the things that has become apparent after the 5th assessment report, even in fact after the 4th assessment report, is that there is great science, but there is a great deal of information, data, okay, intelligence, knowledge, that is not being translated effectively into action on the ground. So one of the areas we're spearheading at the moment is in Europe is climate services. And climate services is exactly that. It is translating this knowledge, this information, of which we have a lot, because we have on temperature, precipitation, heat, you name it, sea level rise. So we have a lot of knowledge that has been generated in the last few years. But this is not something easy for a small or medium enterprise sometimes to understand what it means for them, for their business model, or even for a private citizen. You may be interested in knowing what sea level rise is going to look like in 50 years' time, because you live in the Netherlands or because you have a house on the beach, okay, whatever reason, or a major hotel corporation, for example, they develop hotels and buildings along stretches of coast, so they are interested in knowing what sea level is going to look like in 100 years' time, because these buildings tend to be there for a long time. So this is the kind of thing we're looking at. In other words, we're telling the community of scientists, hey guys, you've done a really good job, there's an amazing amount of information that you've provided us in the last few years, but now we're telling business leaders, local authorities, all the private sector, etc., we need to understand this information and translate it into something useful. So action, adaptation. And this is what this conference is all about. Okay? This conference is about bringing scientists together with practitioners and creating the new solutions that will enable us to adapt into climate change. Okay?
How do you think it's going to work in practice? What do you need for that?
You need a great deal of motivation. Okay. You also need a great deal of financial sanity. You need all of this to make sense financially. So one of the things that we were talking about this morning is that we can't just promote the issue of climate change, adaptation, for the sake of climate. We need to be able to approach businesses and tell them, okay, if you do X and Y, it makes sense financially, and you will be adapting to climate change, or you will be helping with mitigation. So in other words, one of the things we were talking about at the plenary session this morning was really the highlights of what people are coming to conclude now. This is sort of the level of understanding where we are at. In other words, climate adaptation by waving the climate flag will not work. Okay? We need to be able to wave the business flag. We need to be able to wave the dollar flag, as they were talking about this morning. So, because it needs to make financial sense.
So then you're doing something comparable with ecosystem services, like that you give a number to things which are coming out of the.
So one of the things that we're also working very hard on is nature-based solutions. Okay,
Yes.
so I think if you look about 10 years ago, for example, again flooding, you would build walls, and barriers to prevent flooding from happening. But now we've come to realize that actually we need to work with nature, okay, and not by building just concrete walls. Of course, there are different places, different solutions, but the fact that we are coming to the conclusion that nature-based solutions are an effective adaptation tool and mechanism, I think it's very important. It also shows that the adaptation business, if you like, is maturing. It's learning from nature and taking advantage of what's out there.
For example, room for the river.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. Or the very amazing Dutch approach to managing flooding, whereas most countries will use defend or retreat. The Dutch will conquer, and that's really quite amazing, because you're showing the world that you don't just have to be afraid of it. You can make a threat, a hazard, and turn it into an opportunity. So in that respect, you do teach a big lesson to the rest of the world.
What we want to do, I guess.
Yes, of course.
We want to stay ahead.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay, I think that was everything I wanted to ask.
Okay.
So
Thank you very
for
much.
your time. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Good luck.
yeah, thank
Good
you.
luck
Thank
with
you
your
very
project
much.
and your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Thanks.
Okay.